Hey guys, let's talk about last night's episode of The Tomorrow People. And it was a good episode. I would have liked to have seen a little bit of follow up between Astrid and Steven after the big reveal at the end of last week's episode. We didn't get that in this one, but he was warned by his partner, Agent Nichols, that he was to not let both his other world and this world collide. So obviously, that's going to become a problem. In this episode, we got to meet a new breakout, and that was Piper. And she actually turned out to be Agent Nichols' sister. And that created some issues and unfortunately a death. So we are no longer going to see Agent Nichols around because she basically sacrificed herself to save her sister. And it was sad, it was emotional, but we didn't really know much about either character to really be that engaged. On the other hand, we got to find out more about Russell's backstory. And we found out that he was a pianist and his father really pushed him to be good at that. And he was. But he was also angry with his father because he wanted him to practice like 6 hours a day on the weekdays, 8 hours on the weekends, and he basically had no life. And he was cheating and trying to gamble at casinos and make this money. And we find out it was so that he could give it to his father so that he could be set free from all the things that his father wanted to do. And his father really wasn't a bad guy. He just thought his son loved piano, and unfortunately, he didn't. And when Russell steals from these guys from the casino, they come to his home. They attack his father. They like crush his hand with these hammers, and it's pretty graphic. But Russell sees that his father really does love him, and he'll do anything to protect him. And in a really sad scene, we see Russell play the piano for at a concert, and he gets this great reaction from the crowd, and he gives his bow, and he waves to his father from across the aisle, and then he disappears. So I guess his father knew that he saw his son disappear and never told anybody. So when his father dies and Russell has to go back to their home, he's really scared and he's reluctant, and he takes John with him, or I should say John volunteers to go with him. And I think it's more out of, wanting to get away from having to discuss some things with Kara, because Kara is not pleased that he hid the fact that he could kill away from her, but she's more displeased with the fact that he's hiding stuff because she can tell that he's blocking things from her when she's trying to read his mind. So John kind of uses this as an excuse to leave and, also help support his friend. And I think it's also partly that John doesn't have any family. So maybe it would be nice to see him say goodbye to see Russell say goodbye to his family. So they have a couple nice little bonding moments on their road trip. They get into some fights, but ultimately Russell gets to go to his home and say goodbye to his father and see his mother one last time. So it's a nice little, setup and reveal of his Russell's backstory, and to see that he ultimately does get to say goodbye. So meanwhile, while all this was going on, of course, Kara and Steven were having many scenes together. And of course, the show has been pushing the triangle between John, Kara, and Steven, and it definitely plays out in this episode. So when Steven and Kara are off looking for Piper, who's the breakout, they start to share some scenes and they have some bonding moments. And we find out that Kara and Steven are both thinking the same thing, that they're both thinking about each other when they're not together. And in one scene, when they're trying to hide from Ultra, Steven grabs her and kisses her as a ruse. But then obviously this opens the door for the two of them, and they have another conversation later on about just that, the kiss, how they've been thinking about each other. And John's like, or Steven is like, I don't think we should, I don't think this is going to work. And they're being honest that they're starting to feel things for one another. And it's funny, they have like this joking moment about telesex, and Kara's like, well, you've never, it's basically the best thing ever because you can read each other's minds and their thoughts, and you can see exactly how each other's thinking. And next thing you know, the two of them are going at it like rabbits, and they teleport out. So guess what they're off to do? It was kind of like, I don't know, guys. I don't know if I'm I like John as the character. You know, they gave him a little bit more emotional connection in this episode because he got to bond with Russell in a in a sad time in his life. And you know, Kara and John are going through some issues, but does that mean that Steven should swoop in and she should cheat on him? No. If she's not interested in John anymore, she should break up with him and then move on. But of course, that's not what the show wants to do. They want to give us this love triangle, which I'm not sure that I'm feeling. It was a hot and heavy kiss, but you know, this is obviously just going to lead to more drama, which we don't want to see. Now, Jedediah was off for some reason in this episode, and he was spying on a lady named Morgan. And we find out that she is actually a Tomorrow People, and they're in a relationship. And you know, he threatens her, and he's like, "I've told you never to leave the house and teleport out and do all these things." And then she all of a sudden uses her telekinetic powers, and she like takes his tie off. She starts unbuttoning his shirt, and they make out. So Jedediah's been hiding a little secret from his people, and he hasn't turned her in. So that's very interesting to see what's happening there and where that will go. So it was just it was an okay episode. It wasn't amazing, but we did get some good backstory, and I'm liking that they are not just making this all about Steven, Kara, and John, that they're giving other characters backstories and they're letting us get involved. So with Piper now on their side, is she on their side? Obviously, she'll be mad that Ultra killed her sister, and we'll see where that goes from here. But that was pretty much it. The Tomorrow People episode was pretty good. No, nothing earth-shattering, nothing gigantic in its revelations, but it is still moving the story forwards, and that's a good thing. So that is my review of The Tomorrow People. All right, guys, I'll see you next week. Bye.